People often assume that success fills every empty space in your life. They imagine that once you've built extraordinary things, once you've achieved goals that once seemed impossible, the feeling of fulfillment simply stays with you forever. But that's not how life works. Success can be loud. It can dominate headlines, inspire millions, and make the impossible feel ordinary. Yet when the celebrations end, when the meetings are over, and when the noise finally fades, you're left alone with a much quieter question: who do you want to share it with? I've spent countless hours chasing ideas that many people believed could never work. I've embraced uncertainty, accepted failure, and kept moving forward because I believe that progress demands sacrifice. Every challenge taught me resilience. Every setback made me stronger. Every breakthrough reminded me why dreaming beyond limits matters. But there was one lesson that no company, no invention, and no milestone could ever teach me. It took someone extraordinary to reveal it. You became the measure of something I never thought I would value above achievement. Not because you asked for attention, not because you demanded time, but because your presence quietly changed the meaning of everything I was building. Suddenly, success wasn't just about reaching another destination. It became about imagining you standing beside me when I got there. There were moments when the world applauded, yet I found myself wondering what your smile would have looked like if you had been there. There were victories that should have felt complete, but somehow they weren't. It's a strange realization when you discover that fulfillment isn't created by collecting accomplishments. It's created by sharing them with someone who genuinely understands what they cost. The world celebrates results. It rarely sees the long nights, the uncertainty, the moments when confidence disappears and you're left questioning everything. You saw beyond all of that. You never measured me by what I built. You reminded me that beneath every ambitious dream is simply a human being searching for meaning, connection, and a place where they don't have to prove themselves every single day. That changed me more than any success ever could, because love has a way of exposing truths that ambition hides. It reminds you that the most valuable things in life cannot be engineered, purchased, or accelerated. They grow through trust, they deepen through patience, and they become priceless because they ask for nothing except honesty. Looking back, I realized that every achievement added another chapter to my story, but none of them became the heart of it. The heart was always the person who made every finish line feel like a beginning instead of an ending. I learned that building a remarkable life means very little if you forget to make room for the remarkable person who gives that life its deepest meaning. People often think fear shows up when you're standing on the edge of failure. They assume the greatest battles happen when everything you've worked for is at risk. And yes, failure has always been a possibility in every meaningful pursuit. Every ambitious dream carries the chance of collapse. Every bold decision invites criticism. But over time, I discovered something surprising. Failure never frightened me as much as allowing someone to see the parts of me that had no answers. It's strange, isn't it? You can stand in front of thousands of people, defend impossible ideas, invest years into uncertain outcomes, and remain completely composed. Yet standing in front of one person you truly love, saying what your heart has been carrying for years, can make every carefully built wall begin to shake. That kind of vulnerability doesn't ask for intelligence or strategy. It asks for honesty, and honesty is something you cannot rehearse. For a long time, I convinced myself that silence was strength. I believed that if I kept moving, kept building, kept solving bigger problems, then eventually the words I struggled to say wouldn't matter anymore. I buried emotion beneath productivity. I replaced conversations with deadlines. I filled quiet moments with work because work was predictable. It followed logic. Love never does. But every achievement eventually led me back to the same realization. No matter how much progress I made in the outside world, there was still an unfinished conversation waiting inside me. The heart has a remarkable way of refusing to be ignored. You can distract it for a while, but you cannot silence it forever. The truth is, vulnerability feels risky because it gives someone the power to reject what is most genuine about you. It's easier to present accomplishments than emotions. It's easier to discuss plans than fears. It's easier to let people admire what you've built than invite them to understand what you've carried alone. Yet you never asked me to be extraordinary. You never expected perfection. You simply created a space where I didn't have to perform. Around you, I didn't feel the need to prove that I had every answer. For someone who spent so much of life believing every problem required a solution, that was both unfamiliar and deeply comforting. You taught me that real connection doesn't grow from impressive moments. It grows from authentic ones. It grows when two people stop protecting their image long enough to reveal their hearts. That's where trust begins. That's where love becomes more than admiration. It becomes home. Looking back, I realize I wasn't protecting myself from heartbreak as much as I was protecting myself from being seen. But being fully seen by the right person isn't a weakness. It is one of life's greatest gifts. The strongest people are not those who hide behind certainty, but those who have the courage to say, "This is who I am, and this is how deeply I care." So today, I no longer measure courage by the risks I take in business or the impossible goals I pursue. I measure it by my willingness to open my heart without guarantees, because the greatest breakthroughs in life begin the moment you stop hiding behind strength and start leading with truth. There is something about quiet that no amount of noise can erase. The world often celebrates movement, another launch, another project, another goal, another challenge. It rewards the people who never stop. And for a long time, I believed that staying in motion was the answer. If I kept my mind occupied and my calendar full, maybe I could outrun the thoughts that waited for me whenever everything became still. But life has a way of creating those quiet moments, whether you're ready for them or not. It might happen late at night after everyone has gone home. It might happen during a long flight when the cabin lights dim and there is nothing left to distract your mind. It might happen while watching a sunrise after working through another sleepless night. In those moments, when the world asks nothing of you, the heart begins asking everything. And somehow, every road led back to you. It wasn't because I tried to remember you. It was because I couldn't forget you. Memories don't always arrive with grand announcements. Sometimes they appear in the smallest details: a familiar song, a place we've been, a sentence someone says that echoes your voice. Suddenly, time folds in on itself, and for a brief moment, it feels as though nothing has changed. I realize that the people who truly shape your life never completely leave your thoughts. They become part of the way you see the world. They influence your decisions, your perspective, even your definition of happiness. Long after conversations end, their presence continues to guide you in ways you never expected. There were days filled with victories that everyone else celebrated, yet the first thought that crossed my mind was wondering what you would have said. Would you have laughed? Would you have challenged me? Would you have reminded me not to take myself so seriously? It amazed me how one person could remain part of my inner dialogue without ever speaking a single word. Distance has an interesting relationship with love. It can separate two people physically, but it often reveals the depth of a connection emotionally. When someone truly matters, silence doesn't erase them, time doesn't replace them. If anything, both become mirrors that show you how deeply they have become woven into your life. I stopped seeing those memories as distractions. Instead, I began seeing them as reminders. They reminded me that behind every ambition was a human heart longing for connection. They reminded me that success means little if there is no one whose presence makes the journey feel worthwhile. Most of all, they reminded me that some people enter your life not to occupy a season, but to become part of your story forever. So instead of running from the quiet, I learned to listen to it, because every silent moment carried the same unmistakable truth. No matter how far life had taken me, my heart had never really stopped finding its way back to you. And sometimes the clearest direction we will ever receive comes from the voice we've been trying the hardest not to hear. There is a version of every person that the world believes it knows. It's built from headlines, interviews, photographs, opinions, and assumptions. People see the achievements, the setbacks, the public moments that become part of a story everyone feels entitled to tell. Over time, you almost begin to believe that version yourself. You learn to carry the expectations, to answer the questions, to keep moving as though the image everyone sees is the whole truth. But you never looked at me that way. You had this remarkable ability to see beyond everything that surrounded my name. You weren't captivated by the accomplishments or distracted by the criticism. You looked past the noise and found the person who still questioned himself, who still wondered if he was doing enough, who still carried doubts that no one else ever seemed to notice. That was both comforting and terrifying, because it's one thing to be recognized for what you do, but it's something entirely different to be understood for who you are. There were moments when I felt exhausted, not physically, but emotionally. The constant pressure to solve bigger problems, to think further ahead, to carry responsibilities that never seem to end can become heavier than anyone realizes. Most people only see the finished product. They don't see the countless hours of uncertainty that come before it. They don't see the nights when confidence feels distant, or the mornings when determination is the only thing that gets you moving. You saw those moments without asking me to hide them. You never expected perfection. You never asked me to pretend I had everything under control. Somehow, your presence made it acceptable to simply be human. Around you, I didn't have to earn acceptance by accomplishing something extraordinary. I didn't have to prove my worth through another success or justify my value with another ambitious goal. I could simply exist, and that was enough. That kind of love changes a person. It quietly removes the exhausting need to perform. It reminds you that your greatest value has never been found in what you've built, but in who you become when the spotlight disappears. It teaches you that being admired is never as fulfilling as being known. Admiration often stays on the surface. Understanding reaches places that applause never can. I began to realize that the safest place in life isn't somewhere free from challenges. It's with someone who allows you to lower your defenses without fearing that your imperfections will be used against you. That's where trust becomes stronger than reputation. That's where peace becomes more valuable than recognition. You gave me something the world never could. Not more attention, not more praise. You gave me permission to stop carrying the weight of being extraordinary every moment of every day. You reminded me that beneath every title, every achievement, and every expectation is simply a person hoping to be accepted without conditions. And perhaps the rarest kind of love isn't the one that celebrates your greatest victories, but the one that quietly holds your hand when you no longer feel the need to prove that you deserve to be loved. There are certain words that seem simple when you hear someone else say them, yet they become incredibly difficult when they have to come from your own heart. You tell yourself there will be a better moment, a quieter day, a less complicated season. You convince yourself that the people who matter already know how you feel, so perhaps saying it out loud isn't necessary. But time has a way of exposing the excuses we hide behind. Looking back, I can see how many opportunities quietly slipped away. Not because I didn't care, but because I assumed there would always be another tomorrow, another conversation, another chance to explain what your presence truly meant to me. I didn't realize that unspoken gratitude has a weight of its own. It stays with you, growing heavier each day until silence becomes harder to carry than the truth itself. There were countless moments when I wanted to stop everything, look into your eyes, and simply say, "Thank you." Thank you for believing in me when the future was uncertain. Thank you for seeing possibility where others saw risk. Thank you for reminding me that behind every ambitious dream is still a person who needs kindness, patience, and understanding. Those words lived inside me for so long, yet somehow they rarely found their way into the conversations that mattered most. I also should have told you how much your quiet support changed me. The world often celebrates the loud moments, the victories, the announcements, the milestones, but it rarely notices the quiet encouragement that makes those moments possible. You were never competing for attention. You weren't trying to stand in front of the story. You simply stood beside me, and that made all the difference. I should have told you that your belief in me became something I carried into every challenge. When doubt appeared, I remembered your confidence. When the road became uncertain, I remembered your calm. You probably never realized how much strength your presence gave me, because I spent so much time acting as though I didn't need anyone. The truth is, strength doesn't always come from standing alone. Sometimes it comes from knowing that someone believes in you even when you're struggling to believe in yourself. And then there are the three words that should never be delayed, not because they solve every problem, but because they remind someone that they are seen, valued, and deeply cherished. Love isn't diminished by being spoken. It grows stronger. It creates memories that silence never can. Waiting for the perfect moment often means missing the moments that were already perfect enough. If I could change one thing, it wouldn't be the challenges I faced or the mistakes I made along the way. It would be the moments when I chose restraint over honesty, hesitation over gratitude, and silence over love. Because in the end, the words we fear saying are often the very words that have the power to change a life. And the greatest regret is never loving too deeply, but waiting too long to let that love be heard. Life has a way of teaching lessons that no classroom ever could. Some lessons come through success, others through failure. Some arrive in moments of celebration, while others quietly reveal themselves through loss, distance, and the passage of time. I've learned that time is the one resource we all believe we have more of, until one day we realize how much of it has already slipped through our hands. For years, I approached life as though every problem could be solved with enough effort. If something wasn't working, I could work harder. If a goal seemed impossible, I could think differently. That mindset accomplished many incredible things, but it also created an illusion that everything important could simply be postponed. I believed that after the next project, after the next challenge, after the next milestone, there would finally be enough space to focus on what truly mattered. But life doesn't always wait for our schedules. The people we love don't remain frozen in time, patiently waiting for us to become less busy or more emotionally available. They continue living, growing, changing, and sometimes walking paths that slowly move them farther away. Moments disappear without announcing that they are the last of their kind. A conversation you postpone today may never return tomorrow. A hug you assume can wait may become a memory you wish you had held on to just a little longer. That realization changed something inside me. I began to understand that love isn't asking us to abandon our dreams. It isn't asking us to stop building, creating, or reaching for impossible goals. It simply asks that we remember why we are building those dreams in the first place. Achievement means very little if, along the journey, we neglect the people who gave our ambitions meaning. What's the value of reaching the summit if the person you wanted beside you is no longer there to witness the view? I've also learned that love doesn't require perfect timing. We spend so much of our lives waiting for the ideal moment to express gratitude, admiration, or affection. We tell ourselves we'll speak when circumstances are better, when we're more confident, when life becomes less complicated. But the truth is, life rarely becomes less complicated. If anything, it becomes more demanding. The perfect moment isn't something you discover, it's something you create by choosing honesty over hesitation. There is a quiet courage in telling someone they matter while you still have the chance. There is wisdom in making time for the people who have stood by you, even when the world competes for every minute of your attention. Those moments may seem small at the time, but they become the memories that define an entire lifetime. If these years have taught me anything, it is this: opportunities can be rebuilt, fortunes can be regained, and even failures can become stepping stones to something greater. But a moment left unspoken, a heart left waiting, or a love left unexpressed can become the one thing no amount of success will ever recover. So never let tomorrow become the hiding place for the words your heart is ready to speak today, because love is at its strongest when it is given before time has the chance to take the choice away. One of the greatest misunderstandings about love is the belief that it only matters if two people remain side by side forever. We often measure love by outcomes, by photographs, by anniversaries, or by whether the story unfolds exactly as we imagined. But as the years have passed, I've come to believe that real love reaches much deeper than that. It leaves fingerprints on your character. It changes the way you think, the way you dream, and even the way you see yourself. Once that happens, distance cannot erase it. Life has a remarkable way of taking us in directions we never expected. Dreams evolve, responsibilities grow, circumstances change. Sometimes the paths of two people remain perfectly aligned, and sometimes they drift apart despite the sincerity of what they once shared. That reality can be painful, but it doesn't make the love any less real. It simply reminds us that some people are meant to shape your soul, even if they cannot walk every mile of your journey. When I think about you, I don't only remember the conversations we had or the moments we shared. I remember the person I became because of you. You challenged me to slow down when everything inside me wanted to race ahead. You reminded me that listening is often more powerful than speaking. You showed me that kindness is not a distraction from greatness. It is one of its greatest expressions. Those lessons remain with me every single day. Whenever I make difficult decisions, I find myself asking questions I never would have considered before meeting you. Not because you told me what to think, but because you changed the way I looked at the world. That is the quiet power of genuine love. It doesn't control you. It transforms you so naturally that you hardly notice the change until you look back and realize you're no longer the same person. There is also a certain peace that comes with maturity. Earlier in life, I thought love meant holding on as tightly as possible. I believed that if something mattered enough, you had to fight endlessly to keep it exactly as it was. Now I understand that love is not possession. Love is appreciation. It is gratitude for the privilege of having known someone whose presence made your life richer, regardless of where the road eventually leads. That doesn't mean the feelings disappear. It means they become quieter, wiser, and less demanding. Instead of asking, "Why didn't things happen exactly as I hoped?" you begin asking, "How fortunate was I to experience something so meaningful at all?" That single shift changes everything. It replaces bitterness with thankfulness and regret with respect. So wherever life carries us from this moment forward, know this with complete certainty: there is a part of who I am that will always carry the light you brought into my life. Not because the past holds me back, but because your love became part of the foundation upon which I continue to build my future. And some hearts never truly say goodbye. They simply learn to love with gratitude instead of fear. For so long, I believed that silence was protecting something valuable. I told myself that keeping my deepest feelings hidden would somehow preserve them, that waiting for the perfect time would make the words more meaningful when they were finally spoken. But I've learned that silence has a cost. It slowly builds a wall between two hearts that were never meant to live behind barriers. The words left unsaid don't disappear, they simply become heavier with every passing day. Today, I no longer want to carry that weight. Everything I've shared with you has led to this moment. The lessons from success, the moments of failure, the nights filled with questions, the quiet memories that refuse to fade, the realization that love matters more than applause, and the understanding that time waits for no one. They have all brought me here. Not to make another promise about the future, but to tell the truth about the present. The truth is simple. You have mattered to me far more than I ever allowed myself to admit, not because life has always been easy with you, not because every chapter has unfolded perfectly, but because you awakened something inside me that no achievement ever could. You reminded me that beyond ambition is connection, beyond innovation is compassion, beyond every goal is the simple desire to share life with someone who truly sees you. There was a time when I thought strength meant remaining composed no matter what happened. I believed that emotions should be managed quietly, tucked away where they couldn't interfere with progress. But now I understand that real strength is not found in pretending you need no one. It is found in having the courage to stand before another person without your armor and say, "This is my heart." That kind of honesty doesn't guarantee a particular outcome. It doesn't promise that every feeling will be returned or that every story will end exactly as we hope. But it does offer something even more valuable. It offers freedom. Freedom from wondering what might have happened. Freedom from carrying words that were meant to be spoken. Freedom from allowing fear to write the ending of a story that deserved the truth. So today I choose openness over hesitation. I choose gratitude over regret. I choose presence over distraction. Most importantly, I choose love over silence. If these words reach your heart, then they have already accomplished more than any public recognition ever could. And if they inspire even one person listening to stop delaying the conversation they've been afraid to have, then this moment becomes larger than just the two of us. It becomes a reminder that the greatest opportunities in life are not always the ones we create. They are the ones we embrace with honesty before they slip away. So this is my final confession, spoken without fear, without conditions, and without hiding behind another tomorrow. You changed my life in ways that no success ever could, and whether the future brings us closer together or sends us on different paths, I will never regret choosing to tell you the truth. Because in the end, the bravest thing any heart can do is speak with complete sincerity while there is still time for love to be heard.